Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. A while back I reviewed Doomlings, a card game about creation, evolution and apocalyptic destruction. You know, for kids. The idea is that players use trait cards to evolve their cute little critters, giving them the skills and enhancements required to thrive and ultimately score big when the world goes boom. If you missed my review, you will find a link for it in the video description below. Anyway, I admit Doomlings is a fun enough game, but it was not really my sort of thing. I wouldn't turn down a game, but it's never going to be the first box I pull off the shelf. However, my kids loved it. My 14-year-old daughter enjoyed the gameplay and the humour, but it was my younger son who fell in love with the concept. He immediately started creating his own Doomlings. Some Doomlings he made up from scratch, even creating his own playing cards, which are now part of my core set. Other Doomlings he created by sifting through the deck of cards and picking out the traits he liked the most, before drawing what he thought the final form of a creature with all those traits would look like. Any game that inspires that level of creativity is a winner in my books, so when I was offered review copies of some of the Doomlings expansions, I knew I had to check them out. My kids would never have forgiven me otherwise. Today I have two different Doomlings expansions to look at, both of which extend and therefore require the Doomlings base game. There's Legends of Enderas, a large variety expansion comprising 5 new sets of cards, and Shadow Puppets, a smaller, less expensive bolster expansion. Legends of Enderas comes in a foiled box with great cover art that really showcases why younger players will find this game so appealing. Look at that little Doomling knight screaming a battle cry on horseback. Absolutely adorable. The back of the box says you are getting 5 new card sets: Dinolings, Mythlings, Techlings, Fuselings and Treasures. That is a total of 120 new cards, including traits, dominant traits, ages and catastrophes. And as an added bonus, you get a mystery foiled card from the set. I got the Heart of the Woods treasure card. Speaking of treasures, the 26 card treasure set is probably the most interesting inclusion in this expansion, as it does the most to shake up the core gameplay experience. To add treasures to your game, you shuffle the treasures, deal 1 to each player, and then set the rest aside to form the treasure draw deck. Treasures are not considered part of your hand, so have no impact on how many traits you may have. During gameplay, whenever an age is revealed, you draw 1 treasure card if you have fewer than 2. Most treasure cards have 2 effects, and during your turn, you can play as many treasures as you want, using no more than 1 effect from each before discarding them. The effects fall into 6 categories. There are rush effects which you play before the start of your turn. They have varying applications. There are mutate effects which you use at the start of your turn. When you mutate, you take 1 trait from your trait pile, place it at the bottom of the trait deck, then play 1 trait of the same colour to replace it. This can really help you to adapt to unexpected changes in how the game is unfolding. Echo effects happen on your turn. When you play a trait with a specified colour, you can immediately play another trait of the same colour. Adapt effects also happen on your turn. When you play a trait that has an action, you ignore it and then play an action of the same colour from any trait pile. Finally, cloak effects can be played in response to any non-dominant effect, preventing the effect entirely. Treasures add a lot of options and open up additional strategies. However, this is also arguably the most complicated set to incorporate, as players have to juggle 2 hands of cards and effects with different timings. As such, I would consider this a more advanced inclusion to consider only once players are very familiar with the basic gameplay. The next set is the one my boy is most excited about: Dinolings. All kids love dinosaurs, right? You get 21 traits, 3 dominant traits, 2 ages and 1 catastrophe. The big gimmick here is the Dinolings generally award a large number of points, but they come with a cost. For example, the Carnivore trait is worth 6 points, but it forces you to discard all other Dinolings from your trait pile. While Colossal is worth 7 points, but to play it you must discard a card with a face value of 5 or more. However, all is not lost, as several cards in this set will let you retrieve cards from the discard pile. For example, Plastron lets you play the top card from the discard pile, while the Carbon Boom Ages card lets you draw the top 2 discarded cards. Almost as exciting for my boy is the introduction of the Techlings. He has a fascination for all things robotic, so this really appeals to him. You get 21 traits, 3 dominant traits, 2 ages and 1 catastrophe. While Dinolings are mechanically fairly straightforward, making them a good first step in expanding your base game, Techlings introduce the more advanced concept of attachments. These cards have a double cog symbol, and when they are played to your trait pile, they must be attached to a host trait. Each host can only have 1 attachment. Sometimes attachments are simple, like Bionic Leg, which changes the host face value to 4, but others are more complex, like the dominant trait Steam Powered, which has varying effects based on the colour of the host. Then we have what is undoubtedly my daughter's favourite new set, the Mythlings. She has become quite a fan of D&D, so a set of cards with fun takes on myths, legends and fantasy tropes is perfect for her. Again, there are 21 traits, 3 dominant traits, 2 ages and 1 catastrophe. Some Mythlings use the attachment mechanism that is also present in the Techling set. Additionally, some have a new spell icon. These spells have powerful effects that trigger when they are discarded. For example, you can discard Foresight from your hand to peek at the next age, or discard Cursed to attach it to an opponent's trait as a negative points modifier. Finally, there is a smaller set of Fuselings, which combine elements of the Dinolings, Mythlings and Techlings to make interesting power combos. The set comprises 9 traits, 1 dominant trait, 2 ages and 1 catastrophe. The most interesting thing here is the modularity. You can plug and play these card sets in any combination you want. You can throw them all into your game for maximum variety and chaos, or tailor your selections to create games that focus on particular mechanisms. And of course, each new set introduces wild and wacky new Doomlings to amuse your players. I would say this is exactly what you want from an expansion like this. More variety, a smattering of new mechanisms to give you something new to think about, but ultimately, more of what you already liked about the core game. And if you're looking for all of that but in a smaller package, there is the Shadow Puppets Bolster Pack. This expansion contains 40 cards, dividers, and of course, a mystery foiled card. I got the adorable Osmo Regulation. The expansion is divided into 4 sets. There are 11 Moonlings, which benefit from lower gene pools, and then there are 11 Glitterings, which are adorable toys that use the term friend instead of opponent in their effects. The most interesting set comprises 11 Deeplings. Not only are the Deeplings delightfully sinister, they also introduce suppress effects. When you suppress a trait, you flip it upside down underneath any other trait. The suppressed card no longer counts as a trait and has no face value, but it is worth 1 point at the end of the game. This is a good way to turn a negative trait that would cost you points into something positive. The rest of the Shadow Puppets expansion is made up of 4 Fuselings, which mix up traits from the other 3 sets, plus 2 new ages and 1 new catastrophe. Obviously, this bolster pack doesn't expand your options in the same way as Legends of Enderas, but there are some fun and creepy new critters to add into the mix, and the suppress mechanism is a fun way to help take control of your trait pool when the negative modifiers start getting out of hand. As a gamer, I appreciate the additional nuance the new mechanisms can bring to the game. Some of them do help to level out the amount of chaos, which is something I complained about in my initial review. However, my biggest issue with the expansions is they don't really go far enough. The sets are fairly small, and of the included cards, only some incorporate the new mechanisms. As a result, with the exception of treasures, they aren't always that impactful, and you could go a whole game without seeing any of those new mechanisms in play. They become something you can use opportunistically, rather than something you can build a cohesive strategy around. So again, it feels like those new effects, rather than mitigating the randomness, simply add to it in new ways. Sometimes you will still be a victim to the whims of fate and misfortune, and often you will just feel like there isn't all that much point worrying about a strategy. Just play your cards, go with the flow, and have fun seeing what kind of Doomlings you can make. After all, the world might end tomorrow. In summary, I would say, if you don't like Doomlings, these expansions won't change your mind. But if you do like Doomlings, you are going to enjoy these expansions. They breathe fresh life into the game, even if it is fresh life that's about to get crushed in a world-ending catastrophe. Both of these expansions are available for purchase right now. And that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.